So welcome, everybody, to this webinar arranged by Computas. This morning's session has its title, Get Started with AI on Google Cloud. And I'll be the host and presenter. My name is Morten Forfang. I'm a director at Computas, and I also have a PhD in artificial intelligence. Today's topic. I'm thinking that we will spend, I think the entire session today is allocated for 45 minutes. We will spend a little bit less than that listening to me talking. And there will be ample opportunity to ask questions at the end. I think today's topics, I think we'll start with talking about Google AI and the offering that Google AI comes with. We'll delve ever so slightly into the very popular topic of ChatGPT. And then we'll move from there and talk about Computas, this company's AI offering, and how that fits in with the Google AI offering. And then we'll talk slightly about examples from industry, examples that we've been working on, AI projects that we've been working on, mainly quite recently. We'll round off with talking about how things can go wrong and pitfalls. And then there will be a Q&A session for those who want to join that. And that's it. So that's the agenda for today. So let's start with talking about Google's AI offering. All the major public cloud vendors, all from America, all across the Atlantic, all their offerings are both staggeringly broad and deep. The products are mature, and it's a bit of a challenge to say meaningful and concrete things about the offering in a very short time span. The way I'll do it is that I'll first talk about how you can take all these services and generally categorize them into three broad buckets, which is kind of a tool you can use for cloud services in general, but also for AI services. And when we've done that and got a handle on that, then we'll look at some of the functional areas in Google's AI offering. And that way we'll sort of at least get some kind of handle on it. And I'll try to end with something that is fairly specific and fairly practical, such that after this webinar, if you're so inclined, you can go and try some of these things yourself. So I don't want it to be an entirely just abstract exercise. I want to sort of narrow it down somewhat such that it becomes something tangible and practical for you. So that's the idea, at least. So if you look at the broad spectrum of AI services that Google comes with, then one can in general classify them according to how ready-made they are, how off-the-shelf they are, and how much expertise and flexibility you get with the services. So you can have a set of services that work out of the box, and which, in this example here, with this car object being recognized, if you supply it with a video, for example, the AI will recognize various objects in that video, like this car. If it does, that's great. Then you've sort of got quite far with minimal effort and minimal cost for that matter. But it's also kind of sort of a take it or leave it kind of service, in the sense that there is no opportunity to say, but hang on, it didn't recognize that particular tire on that white car at the back behind there, for example. There are no handles, nothing you can sort of tweak. It either works for your purpose or it doesn't. So that's kind of sort of an off-the-shelf service, which is something that you might try in an early round. And if it's sufficient, great. If not, then you might move on to something that is still a managed product where you don't have to think very much about the intrinsics of the underlying mechanisms of machine learning, artificial intelligence. You provide your own data, You can customize it. There are a couple of things you can tweak, and then you push the button, and either it works or it doesn't. So that's kind of sort of a platform offering, if you want to. And then for some cases, that is not sufficient. And then you might move all the way down to something that is safety belts off. You need considerable expertise, and it might take some time, but you get a full control over the entire stack with all the data pipelines, all the machine learning models, everything built from the bottom. So that's kind of sort of a general way, as many of you I'm sure are aware, of classifying cloud services in general, but also AI services. It's a helpful way of thinking about it. If we move from there to talking about functional areas, then the Google offering, we might start, in a sense, on the top with industry verticals, sort of entire solutions that are tailored for a particular business area. So that might be, for example, customer relations, contact center AI, or it could be for productivity software, where like you write your emails, you write your text, or you do your spreadsheets, and you get some kind of an assistant where you can talk to the assistant and ask, how do I sum these columns, or could you provide me with a paragraph that describes blah blah blah, and then it will do that for you. Or it could be in healthcare, for example. So these are business verticals. Under there, you have a set of services that make it easy for you to just build an application, get going quite fast. So it's sort of AI underneath, but essentially what you provide is that you provide some data and you choose some functionality, and then behind the curtain, it sort of assembles all for you and gives you more or less a ready application to run. So that's an excellent way of going and experimenting and sort of getting quite up to speed very fast. So that's kind of sort of the app builder part. And then we, from there, move into, let's say, the ground floor of the building, where Vertex AI, as they call it, is, which is kind of sort of the foundational services that underpin all of AI functionality of the Google Cloud. And there you have something for every flavor. You have something that caters for professional developers, the safety belt off things, but also lots of managed products that are fairly easy to use. And under there, you find sort of the basement, the infrastructure, among other things, all the virtual hardware with graphical processing units that are used for linear algebra, which is kind of sort of a core part of how machine learning works. And Google has its own TPU, the tensor processing units that Google is alone about having, which kind of says GPUs on steroids, if you want to. So that's kind of sort of how the services functionally look. It takes a lot of effort to talk about all of these things, and it's beyond the scope of this webinar, but let's focus on something. So we'll sort of focus a little bit more on this layer where you could build applications quite rapidly. You could come with your own data and see something that works before lunch, so to speak. So we'll talk ever so slightly about conversational AI and search, and a little bit about the foundational models to give you kind of a flavor for the different capabilities that are in the platform. So if one looks at conversation and search, I'm now trying to focus on something that, as you can see with the URL, something you can try yourself. So you can punch in that URL afterwards, sign up for an account with Google Cloud if you don't have that already. That's for free. And then you can sort of choose. There are a couple of other selections as well, but you can choose either, I want to provide my own data, for example, enterprise data and my organization's data, and then I want to do search on that, and I want to have a conversation about the content. So you can sort of, or that's the chat, sorry. And for search, you can search and get results that relate to the enterprise data you have provided it. And likewise, just being a bit faster, likewise for chat, you can have some a chatbot, a conversational agent that sort of becomes an application, and where your clients, your users can have conversations about proprietary data that your own organization owns. So that's something to try. And the foundation models, I just wanted to show you that. As you can see, we move now, so in the middle upper part of the screen, you can see it says Vertex AI. So now we're sort of on that ground floor we talked about. And you can see there just a screenshot from how part of that console, that screen looks, and where you sort of can build notebooks, and you can do AI Studio, and you can provide data, and you can put it into production, things like that. And there's a model garden, which is kind of sort of the AI brains, and you have various specializations. You might have sort of virtual employees, if you want to, that are particularly good at recognizing images or doing translation, or are excellent at extracting particular types of text out of prose, things like that. So that sort of rounds off, I think, our very short introduction to Google Cloud Services in general. And since ChatGPT is such a popular thing, OpenAI were earliest, if you want to, with respect to these large language models, these things where you can use normal language, Norwegian or English or a ton of other languages. And the natural question that we meet many times is whether Google has something equivalent to ChatGPT. And it does. It's called Bard. And there again, there's a URL there. You can punch that in, and you can, after this webinar, try it out if you want to. And if you've tried ChatGPT, it's the same kind of experience. You can have conversations. It might occasionally hallucinate. You might learn things. You can have an argument, things like that. It's a great way generally to sort of be more knowledgeable about a particular subject, or if there is something specific you wonder about. And this is for end users. This is for the broad public, right? And one of the things that Google does is that it provides you also with sort of the professional flip side of this. Back to that Vertex AI layer, there you can do exactly the same, but for a kind of a professional purpose, where you can ask it things, you can do prompts, as it's called, and you can sort of tune your prompts, the prompt engineering part. And then when you're sort of happy with something that is tailored for a particular purpose, something that you want to focus on, then you can sort of press a button and you get stubs for code, such that your developers, those who are tech savvy, they can sort of take that, paste it into somewhere where they run that code. There's even a tab there, Python Colab, where you can run the code, and then you have something where you get a flying start, moving from something that is like Bard, and then moving towards something that is more tailored for a particular purpose, for a particular chatbot, something like that. And if that Gen app builder I showed you previously doesn't really fit the bill, then you can go slightly more safety belts off and code these things yourself with such stubs, and you're up and running still kind of before lunch if you want to. So that's sort of wraps up maybe the Google Cloud AI services being available. And with that, I'll move and spend some minutes talking about Computas AI offering, and that would be sort of the AI offering of solution houses and consultancies and integration service companies in general, but Computas specifically. And I think one of the reasonable questions to ask, and which we get once in a while, is, but hang on, if Google Cloud is such a mature, deep, and wide offering, everything works, why do I need anything else? That's a great question. And in a sense, you kind of don't. But then you need to do things yourself. In a sense, if I use an analogy with Lego pieces, you can buy a box and you get lots of Lego pieces. That would be the products, each piece being a product from the Google Cloud. And they're sturdy, they work, they're bright and nice. But if you want to build an Eiffel Tower, if you want to do something that is fit for a particular purpose, how do you put all those pieces together to make it into an Eiffel Tower? And that Google and these large public cloud vendors, they don't do that for you. That you either need to do yourself, read the manual, or you need to talk to somebody who has done that before. And that's our specialty. So the type of questions, if you want to, or the type of activities which kind of entails this building of the Eiffel Tower, metaphorically speaking, come in, there are a couple of commonalities. One thing is AI is a really fast-moving train. Technology is a fast-moving train. So your sourcing strategy might tell you something about what kind of competence do I want to have in-house? How do I keep track, basically? How do I get my employees to know sufficient about AI? So that's kind of sort of one area. And then there was this thing about when you build that Eiffel Tower and you want it fit for purpose. How do you do that? So we run workshops, we work together with our clients and try to sort of get some people that are business knowledgeable and some people that are technology knowledgeable and domain experts. And we sort of put them in the same room and we work with them, finding those sweet spots where there is both technological opportunity and business needs, such that you can have somewhere to start in this wide landscape. And that sort of ties in with how do you know that the data are good? Because it's with AIs as it is with all information IT components, this garbage in, garbage out. If you feed an AI with bad data, then the results of their predictions or classifications or generative whatever will be according to those data, such that it's important also to get the data in a fresh and accurate fashion. And that is usually also kind of sort of a fairly large part of an effort that pertains to AI. And then there is the issue of sort of, yeah, great, we've built something with AI and it sort of seems to work. How do we make it fit into the value change, the business value change that we already got? There's this saying that you might build a white elephant, something that is costed a lot of effort to do and which looks great, it's just nobody uses it. So how do you avoid that? That's a general IT problem, right? But it also applies to AI. And also, if you employ Smith to work in your organization, and after a while he's competent, and then maybe business circumstances change, the rules of the game change, and you go to Smith and say, look, you've done marvelously so far, but from now on you need to do this slightly different, right? How do you do that? If you have an AI which does this task instead, how do you get the AI to keep track of the changing environment and changing data? So that's kind of something about operations, right? So that's also kind of an entire and a separate ball game, if you want to, which many clients need to keep some kind of tab on. So these are the kind of things that we look at and work with, putting all those Lego pieces together and forming an Eiffel Tower that is fit for a particular purpose, right? Yeah, and I didn't mention regulatory and compliance related stuff as well. We've been reading about AIs being racist and sort of discriminatory in the wrong way. So how do you make sure that doesn't happen? And also, an artificial intelligence, a machine learning model is kind of an information store. It's you can see it as a type of database. So you might store lots of information in that brain that is proprietary, that is business critical, that is personal identifiers, that might be under legal regulatory compliance requirements. So you need to keep track of that as well, right? So that's also something that we help clients doing. So those are kind of the services we provide, I guess. And for many clients, okay, that's fine. That was a lot to take in. How do I start? And then for many clients, there's just generally that part of taking some key business people and some technologists, putting them in the same room, getting them to talk and to see if we can find those places where it's low risk and high reward going forward, and trying to sort of focus on some small, narrow areas, which kind of you think big, but you start small. So that's kind of a discovery workshop. And that comes out from there. You got a kind of a report or some recommendations that we work out together. And that's something you can steer with. You can bring it to your own leadership and say, look, here is somewhere we can start. This is a great place to do. And then you might pick 1 or 2 or 3 of them and say, let's pilot that. Let's build a demonstrator. Let's see if it actually works on the ground, right? So then we might move from there and over to a lab. So we build together with you, entirely different and entirely depending on your competence and sourcing setup. We sort of work together on sort of making some demonstrators like that, and that sort of gives further fuel to the organization with respect to understanding how such a thing might work in the organization. So those are sort of starting points that many organizations choose to use. I think the important thing is to sort of dip your toe, get your fingers dirty, at least start playing with it, do something with it. I've provided you with some URLs where you could sort of play around with it yourself, and I've given you some pointers into, what things to think about and how to sort of initiate an AI project. Right. Yeah, we have some time left. Let's talk a little bit about what we've done for other clients. And I think the idea here is the exercise for you in the audience is to take these examples and see if you in some way can sort of map them onto your own business challenges, your own organization. When I show you something that has to do with recommendation systems, for example, okay, could I have used that in my organization? What are the kind of pain points, the innovative things we want to do where that might map? And that's a hard exercise. Human brain is not particularly well made for sort of mapping one problem domain to another, but at least, that's homework. Whilst I'm talking, try to think, how might that map onto our organization? So one broad area which we've done for many, many years is this area where one has workflow or case management, and you want in some way to, for example, get some kind of efficiency gain. Lots of tedious, repetitive work for highly skilled workers. Is there some way that we could sort of take 30% of all that mundane work away and let our employees work on the difficult cases, for example, right? So here the name of the game is essentially to sort of provide those fresh and accurate data, and then in a way you have rules, for example, that in this particular case, applications for citizenship, those things that the domain experts, those who have actually been working on these cases, know are the things that you need to look for to make a recommendation or a decision. And then in this case, there are on the pile of work for a particular office worker, a competent office worker, maybe this part, a section of it, are cases that are really no-brainers. They should all be thumbs up or something like that. They're all accepted applications. They're well within the parameters. And then there is a large section where, hang on, we need to think about this. There are some deliberations to be done, but it would be great to get a recommendation. How do previous similar cases have looked, for example? So that's a broad area where one sort of gives recommendations or support in office work where decisions are being made, if you want to. And that leads us to another large area, which is generally recommending things. I mean, the prototypical application here would be a shopping cart. People like you, customers like you, have also bought this. They also like this, things like that. So that kind of sort of would be recommendations. And as you can see, recommendations, decisions, assistance, all those are sort of, functionally fairly similar, and AIs are excellent with alleviating that kind of work and making you able to use some of your employees in a better way than doing mundane, repetitive work. Another sort of area where we do work is crystal ball gazing. Optimization problems, they're often technically speaking so that's essentially looking at past history, for example, with Ruter, this public transport company, and where you are about to enter a bus, and then you wonder, is it going to be full? So we're guessing about whether it's going to be full. And the generic pattern here is basically that there are historical data, every Monday is fairly similar, every Easter are fairly similar, things like that. And we exploit these patterns, regularities in time series, and then we sort of use that for predicting some trend or how the future will look. And in this particular case, we map it onto an app for public transport, for example. So here as well, you can see all kinds of sort of logistic problems, optimization problems, or trend problems. How is this going to be in the future? How can we do better planning? Because if we know how things will look in 2 months' time, then we can do planning such that we have better capacity, things like that, right? So, in your own organization, that's roughly where things like that would fit in, right? Then we have this another broad area, which is generally called predictive maintenance, and where the name of the game is to, in some way, guess at what is about to fall apart before it does. So for Elvia, for example, they have all these infrastructural installations, and they fly around with drones and helicopters, and they take pictures. And there they've tried to assess, we have these teams doing maintenance. Where should they go next? What is about to fall down? Where is the highest risk, right? So you want to optimize that part, and the input to that part is having all that information about how well the state of some infrastructure is, right? So we use image recognition, AI software to assess the type of material, the wear and tear of the material, that's the red dot on the picture, and also whether there are physical damage, things that really need to be taken care of. There is a cap that is missing on this particular picture. So then these things are sort of done by an AI, instead of that there are dozens of people spending their entire day sifting through these images and trying to see the same things. And then you free up a lot of labor that you can use for other more competent purposes, for example. Another large area where AI is very well suited is this thing about going from unstructured text to structured. So for example, with retail, here we are with it's in Norwegian, that note. I do apologize. Okay, it's a order for bathroom articles, and the business here gets tons of these, either by voice or by email. And then you have quite a number of employees, dozens, where their entire day is to talk to people or receive emails like this. And then you have an order system at the side where you have to sort of identify which precise customer, or is it a news customer, when they're ordering these items, what kind of item ideas are there in the item catalog, and so forth. So you extracting the information from the prose, the free text, from the speech, but also in some way doing it something more intelligent than that, and that is guessing. Okay, so this particular item isn't precisely defined, or the customer is referring to an email that he also sent yesterday, and the rest of the context is there. So how do you handle that, right? So modern generative AI combined with a couple of other techniques are excellent at alleviating repetitive, mundane work like this. And you can see how that might apply to all kinds of scenarios where you in some way get unstructured prose, text, public is interacting with you, sending things to you, and then you want to sort of get that into some kind of shape and structure afterwards. It's an excellent area for AI as well. So with this, I hope I've given you some kind of flavor for a small selection of how one might apply AI, both really, bleeding edge, really new generative AI, and traditional AI that sort of does classification and does trends and does regression and things like that, guessing on numbers and things like that. There's this large collection of tools that we can employ, and which, as I said, the main task is to try to take these things and map it onto your own organization and thinking, okay, so predictive maintenance, is that something that we could use and where we could sort of gain an advantage? Is there somewhere here where we can produce a new service that our competitors or the public or our users would really like to have? So that's kind of the exercise to be doing. Well, we're sort of not far from rounding this off. I'll speak a little bit about what can go wrong. And you might be disappointed, but that looks very much like the slide I had 10 slides ago. And there's a reason for that. And that is that the products that the Google Cloud comes with, they're mature. They've been battle proven all over. What kind of hasn't been battle proven is the particular application of these really good tools to your particular context. And that's where the main risk for most customers lie. Such that those questions that we went through previously are essentially the things that you need to keep a tab on. How do you maintain competence? How do you make sure that it works in 3 months, in 6 months, in a year's time when things have changed? How do you make sure that you build something and then at the end when you demonstrating it, legal doesn't raise its hand and say, sorry, you can't have that. It's out of bounds, So getting those things in order, getting the data to be accurate and sharp, and also that not just today, that spreadsheet you sort of assembled so meticulously, and which works today, but what about in a week's time? What about in a month's time? Is the data still fresh? Is it still of high quality? Those are the things that you need to be thinking about. So that's kind of sort of the pitfall list anyway. Well, I think we're sort of at the end of the road with respect to what I had to say. I think we have a little bit of time for questions if somebody has something. I'll try to sort of have a look at the, I have there is a chat here. And then I do believe that anybody can just basically unmute themselves and ask questions if they want to. I'll sit there now and drink a little bit of coffee, and then if in 3 minutes time we have absolutely nothing, that's absolutely fine. Have a great day. And if somebody has something, fire away. And if anybody has any questions, they need to unmute themselves. That's an important exercise, or there will be absolutely no dialogue. That's okay. Let's call it a day. I wish you happy experimenting with AI. It's a great thing out there, a bit risky. You need to keep tab on that, but still an amazing thing to be working on. Bye-bye.